Believing in yourself.
Oh, no.
Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix has reassured me and reinforced my opinions about cinematography and color. Looking back at the previous films in the series, I thought I enjoyed the colorful lighting because it brought some magic to the films, and yet when I look at the images from the Order of the Phoenix, I find the strong blues and oranges to be extremely unflattering and distracting. Perhaps it's because, even among those strong colors and their contrast, the film still feels desaturated and flat, whereas the first films in the series weren't. How is it that so much color is pushed into the images by the cinematographer and they still feel dead? In this video, we're going to take a look at the differences between colorful lighting and colorful grading and why one comes across as unnatural. We'll also talk more broadly about why introducing color as a stylistic choice can help emphasize a specific mood, or how it can separate one reality from another, while also exploring the dangers of overusing color without motivation. We'll dissect images, correct them, and see how you can tell the difference between color which is motivated by the cinematographer and color that's introduced by the colorist. If you enjoy videos like this, feel free to watch some of my previous videos in the Harry Potter series, and as this is a new channel, feel free to drop a like, comment, or subscribe as I continue to grow. Let's get into it.
When she comes, she'll be driving 6 white horses. That's private.
Not to me.
Alright everybody, before we jump into the videos and do some analysis on that, I want to take a look at the stills that I have. Oh, my cat's coming. Where is she? Oh, okay, she's under me. I want to take a look at the stills that we have, break down some of this. There's also something, boop. I'm going to show you the nodes first that I'm doing. This one right here is general corrections. And by general corrections, I'm talking mainly about lift, gamma, gain, and a little bit of offset. I think I do offset mainly in these. Okay, yeah. So lift, gamma, gain, offset. First thing you'll notice with this image here, I talked about using white light to represent moonlight or blue light like we saw in the first two. This film is very colorful. You'll see a lot of instances of really deep tungsten lights pushed more toward orange. You'll see shafts of moonlight represented as really strong blue. And I think that in conjunction with how desaturated the rest of the film is and how desaturated the sets are, it's a little bit weird to have such a strong blue light. And so what I've attempted to do with these corrections is first pull some of the blue out, especially in the shadows. It's very unnatural. If you're going to have a color cast, don't push it into the shadows. And I noticed with a lot of these, it's represented in the shadows, so pulled a lot of that out. These are just some corrections to specific areas. This one here being the shaft of light here, corrected it more toward neutral. And then on Harry, there was a lot of that blue ambience. I mean, you can see along the couch, in the shadows, along the shirt. And so correcting that a little bit more toward neutral. So let's full screen this. This is what it looks like after the corrections. That's what it looked like before. And I realize now that I've got 2 monitors. I'm screen recording on the monitor that isn't color calibrated. So if I were to take this image and switch it over to the second one, I wonder if you'd be getting the image as I'm seeing it. I think it's fine because I'm looking at the recording now. It still looks pretty good. Yeah, we'll stick with that. So this is the difference between introducing color casts in post-processing and introducing color casts as the cinematographer. This is clearly the cinematographer pushing some of that blue in. And I think, you know, what could have made this a little bit better as the colorist correcting this, they could have kind of ripped some of that blue out of the shadows because it feels a little bit unnatural for there to be so much blue in the shadows. Although overall, I like this image a lot more just as neutral lighting because I think it fits the desaturated palette a little bit more. As we flick through some of these, you'll begin to see some of that difference between, introducing color artificially and then introducing it through the lighting. This right here is the image as it appears in the film. So this is without corrections. Looks a little blue to me, especially in the lower regions of the image. This is corrected, but that's not too big of a difference because the shot isn't too egregious. But I want to talk about, how you might emphasize a look. This is with me pushing a lot of blue back into the image. If you're going for a certain feel, a certain mood, try to push this. This is pushing blue in while trying to keep the shadows pretty close to neutral. This is if you were going for, warmer scene, perhaps a memory. And notice how I've kept the lower regions, the lower values of the image neutral. You don't want to push a color cast there. This is if you were going for like crime, drama. You're trying to emphasize some of that grit, push some green, push some cool in it, desaturate it a little bit. Keep the blacks in the image as true black. You don't want to push green into the blacks. I would never do this, by the way. I'm just showing why you might color grade an image instead of just color correct. Like, what if you want to emphasize a mood or, create something like this? You could do it in this way, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm doing here. 2 nodes, that's all it took. I like to keep things pretty simple, and I like to work pretty globally. So I like to work within offset because it's the most natural kind of gradation of the colors if you're going to introduce a color cast. All I've done is pull this straight down, straight to those warmer cyan, green colors. That's a pretty common trend for dramas, pushing it more toward green. And then in order to make it feel a little bit more natural while still introducing the color cast, it's just subtract that color from the shadows. You can kind of pick and pull. It's not that necessarily, it's not going to work for every shot, but generally introduce either through gamma or offset and then pull that out of the shadows. Keep your shadows as neutral as possible. You can do this by eye or by picker RGB value, and then looking and trying to keep, you scroll over something which is supposed to be black and make sure that those values are really close together as they are here. Cut that off. This was saturation, just pulling some of that saturation out. And this right here is the most egregious. So this is before, this is after. It's the same thing. I'm just relying on offset, lift gamma gain, and then a little bit of saturation. Look back here. You can tell this is artificial because it permeates, like I said, like a layer of film over the entire image, and it just takes me out of this world. I look at it and I'm not drawn in, whereas this feels way more natural, looks more realistic. It can pass in this case because this is meant to be almost like a dream sequence for Harry, and yet this just feels so much more impactful because you're ripping that layer of like artificial color that just rests atop the entire image, and it just feels like there's so much more depth to this image. The colors kind of just naturally sit in a little bit more. So this would be a case of, I don't know if the cinematographer had any input on this being the look. This is how it could have looked on the day, because unless they have a massive blue light just shooting across everything, which I highly doubt, this entire thing is blue, this is probably how it looked when they shot it. So I feel like this is just an unnatural introduction. I'm not a fan. Now let's jump over to this image. Like I said, it feels like there's this artificial blue film across the back here. This is actually motivated by moonlight, a really strong blue, but because the room is filled with glass and kind of shaped like this, a lot of bouncing light is kind of seeping into the background here. This right here is with, neutralizing that blue and then bringing some of that skin tone back. And so you can see my issue with this is that, if you're going to have strong moonlight like this, but everything else being so dull, and then you have this white light hitting them, which is in contrast to that blue, everything's pushed a little bit too cool. And then if you neutralize that, I think their skin stands out a little bit more. They stand out more in the image. Let's jump on over to some of the video clips, and I'm going to walk through them, kind of talk through them as they're going, and give some of my insights on that as well. I'd like to start with this scene where they're in the common room and Seamus is talking to Harry. What is confusing me about this scene is that apparently the only sources of light in here, as you can see when Harry turns around and the staircase is revealed, it's that really blue moonlight and then the tungsten lights that are sitting at the exterior of the set here. And yet the only light that's hitting the characters is this really desaturated white, and so all their skin is really desaturated. And so you have these really strong colors pushed into the light shafts and pushed into the practicals, and yet everything else is so desaturated. The light coming from behind the staircase is obviously meant to be moonlight, and yet there's a big window just to the left of the set here, to the right of Seamus, to the left of Harry. The light that's coming from that direction, it's very white, and so it's a little bit confusing about why the light hitting them is so desaturated, and yet the light behind Harry in the staircase is so blue. So just an issue of color consistency, and that's it for this one. Let's jump on over to the next. All right, this is going to be the very last video. I'm going to go ahead and play this real quick. Let me mute this. All right, so what I've done here is I've added just one node, one correction to lift, and we're going to watch this one node kind of take action throughout the video, but I'm going to show you what it's doing immediately off the bat. This correction has pulled out some blue and a little bit of green from the shadows, because I think that's generally the issue with most of these, is that they're shooting a lot of blue light into the scene, which you're going to see, but I feel like it permeates a little bit too much into the shadows, so I think we can still retain some of the character that probably both the cinematographer and the colorist were going for, but still making the skin pop a little bit more and make some of the blacks pop a little bit more with just this one correction. So here is after what I've done, and here's before. You can already see kind of that green, blue permeating just in the ambience, permeating on the cloth here, and then on his skin a little bit. So we've drawn some of that out. Let's go ahead and play this clip. I'll pause here just so we can see the difference here. That really strong blue is just seeping onto everything, absolutely everything. And then we can see that it's killed. Like these are now kind of its natural color. You don't have that blue haze hitting it just by kind of pulling it out of the shadows, which, you always have to look out for your shadows. Stop at this image here. A little bit before and after. Once again, you can just see those deeper regions of the image getting touched with a little bit too much blue, and then just pulling that out. I feel like it's looking way better. This one here, we kind of did it already with the image that we looked at, but look at all the blue sitting on their skin. And then when we pull it out and their skin gets closer to that natural color, you get a lot of that saturation back, but you're still retaining some of the blue characteristics, some of the blue quality, just not as lower in the image. And you can see it really affected here in the shadowy bits. Close-up shot of Neville. This is before, this is after. Notice how we still have the quality of the blue the cinematographer's going for, but what we've done is taken that blue that's sitting in the lower regions, like you can especially see it here, and made that true black again. And because of that, you can see the values on his skin are pushed more toward orange. And so you're getting kind of a natural color contrast between his skin and here, just because we've neutralized the shadows a little bit. It's a pretty big improvement there. And it's the same for all of these. Just that one little node, you can see how much blue is being pulled out of the atmosphere, but also out of their skin, while retaining some of the character that they were going for. So a pretty massive adjustment you can see in his hair. Now that's just a natural color of the hair, whereas before you had a lot of blue introduced. It's getting all of that neutrality back into the blacks. Therefore, their skin is sitting a little bit closer to true color, what it should be. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you if you made it to the end of the video. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask those. If there's a video you want to see after I complete this Harry Potter series, definitely let me know. Sometimes it's better to look at bad cinematography than good cinematography. So if you have a movie in which you think has bad cinematography, definitely let me know. We can take a look at it. Besides that, Thank you for sticking around, and have a good one.